Hey guys, welcome to Mad to Stuff. This week I'm doing some cladding slash fencing on some dodgy old brick walls out in the garden. And that looks a bit like this. So, if you want to see how I got there, stick around. And while this intro's on, remember to drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel. So as always, I'll be going through the tools I'm using, processes I'm following, and generally what I'm up to. But obviously we can't do that in here, because it's too small, and it's not outside. So let's get out in the garden. This is the big pile of wood that I'm going to be putting on my walls today. So you can see the walls, they're looking a bit terrible, the paint's flaking off, it's all dirty, it's the same both sides, just generally in need of a bit of TLC, but instead of doing that, I'm just going to clad them in this wood. So what I've got is some 1.8 metre battens, and they're 1 inch by 2 inches, and they're going to be screwed to the wall. I've also got some, I think these are called gravel boards. They're inch by 6 inches, or 150 by 25 mil. And I've also got some longer inch by 2 inch boards, which will make up the pattern. I'll show you the pattern in a bit. And also, when it comes to covering the joins, I've got some 3x1s. They only came in 3.6 metre length, so I had to buy those, but I'll be cutting those in half to cover the join. And they're all pressure treated softwood. I could have gone for something a bit more exotic, like a cedar or a larch, but the price for that ramps up quite quickly. So I've gone for relatively cheap fencing supplies from a fencing supplier. So I've offered the battens up to the wall, and one of the things I noticed was that the wall actually isn't level. It runs off with the slight slope on the garden. So what I'm going to be doing is raising the height of the battens all the way along to match the sort of the one nearest the house. And then the tops will all be level. Might leave me a gap at the bottom, but I think the boards will look better if they are all horizontal, and I don't need to do any sort of angled cuts. So to fix the battens to the walls, I'm using some Fischer Duo Power wall plugs. These were recommended to me by a friend who said they were really good, so I'm going to give those a try. I'll let you know those, get along with those later on. And I'm also, for the screws, using some Turbo Golds. Now they're a standard wood screw that come from Screwfix. They're my go-to wood screw, really like them. Normally, I think for external, you'd use maybe a stainless steel or something rated for external. These aren't, but they do have a corrosive resistant coating on them. And I watched a video by another YouTuber called the Gosforth Handyman, who said it was absolutely fine to use them externally. He did a test over a 5-year period and said they were good as new when he took them out. So yeah, I'm going to use those. So I pre-drilled the battens with my battery drill. I'm just lining up the where I want the holes to be with like the centre of the bricks, so I don't want to get in any mortar joins or anything like that. And then using my SDS drill, I just drill the middle hole. I always go for the middle one first. So once I've got that one screwed in, I can then twist the batten, which allows me to drill the other holes, put the plugs in, and I can twist it back, make sure it's level, and screw the other ones home. So with all the battens fixed to the wall in the same way, you can see I have got a gap at the bottom between the patio and the bottom of the battens, where I've made the tops level. Hopefully that gap won't look out of place, but I'd rather have all the slats horizontal to the earth rather than follow the slope of the garden. I think it'll probably look better on the final finish. I've used some weed suppressant membrane. You can buy this. You usually put this under plants to stop the weeds coming up through. It does what it says on the tin. But I'm using it here to ensure that because I'm going to have a gap between my boards, that I don't see the ugly wall behind. I just see the black membrane. So it'll sort out the gaps essentially, so it'll look like there's a black wall behind, but actually it's just this membrane. It's quite cheap, comes in a big roll, and I've just used a normal staple gun to staple that to the battens. Next job was to make all the cuts. I thought I'd cut them first. I only need to make a few because I've got a bit on the back wall of my house which juts out. So just use my handsaw. Could have got my chop saw out and my miter saw, but I only had a few to make. So the handsaw worked quite well. Saved me running my extension lead outside for the day. So I'm using screws to hold the horizontal slats onto the battens. I did actually buy some screws which are rated for external use. These are called Spax WIROX. Their Spax are a sort of high-end screw, a little bit more expensive than some standard exterior screws, but high strength steel, corrosive resistant. They've got a Torx head on them. And they don't need any pilot holes. I ran in over 400 of these while I was putting this cladding up, and didn't even get close to splitting the wood, so I can confirm they're really good. And I'm also using a couple of window shims taped together, so there's two 5mm shims taped together to give me a 10mm spacer, and that's the gap I'm going to use between each of the slats. So I'd made all my cuts, got my screws ready, and then I just levelled off the first board using my spirit level, and that was my reference board. I started at the bottom, and then just using the spacers that I made, just creating a 10mm gap in between each board. You can see the pattern I'm going for, which is one big one, three small ones, one big one, three small ones, and so on. And then when I got to the top, with the remaining sort of distance at the top, I've just split the difference across the three smaller battens just to make a sort of trellis. Means I don't block out my neighbours completely, and sort of just finishes off the fence quite nicely, I think. So for the screws in each of the middle of each of the battens, I wanted those to be a bit neater and in a line compared to the ones I've just rammed home in the edges. So I just took my spirit level, drew a vertical line, and then eyeballed the centre of each of the planks, and drove in some more screws. Once I was done with that, I just had to repeat the process on the second panel and on the other side of the garden. The only difference with the other side is that the wall was not vertical. So you can see at the bottoms here, I've had to use some packing pieces to just span that gap so that my battens sit vertical. But the rest of the process was exactly the same. Here you can see the joins that I was left with. Some are neater than others. My screws weren't all in a line, but that's fine because I'm choosing to cover that gap with my 3x1s. So they are, like I say, came in twice the length I needed, and I think I bought way too many of them. But once I'd cut those down to the required length, I could then align them on the fence and use some more of the Spax WIROX screws just to screw them in position. So at the house end of the fence, I've got this sort of concrete ledge which I needed to cut round, and so that I'm consistent with the edging, I want the same sort of 3x1s covering the ends of the fence panels. I just needed to cut some miters, so I did start using my mitre block there, but I find it much easier just to do it freehand, and the joins came out absolutely fine. I did that both ends because I've got a flower bed at the other end. So this is what the fence turned out like on one side of the garden. The other side's pretty much the same. And yeah, I'm overall really pleased with the way that this fence now looks in the garden. It's covered an old tatty wall. I might choose to paint the fence or stain it at some point in the future, but for now I just quite like the look of the contrast of the wood at the moment, so I'm going to stick with it. But yeah, very pleased with the outcome. End of another day here on Matt Does Stuff. This week, fence panels, and I think they look pretty good. I'm really pleased with the way they came out. Quick note on some of the things that I've used in there. Fischer dual power plugs worked really well. Not sure how they would work in plasterboard, not tested them, but they worked in walls. I was really happy with how secure they were. What else did I use today? Spax WIROX, really good. Drove in loads, worked really well, no splitting. And you might have noticed I got an impact drill and a drill driver. They were new, and if you want, I'll do an unboxing video on those at a later date. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. But other than that, great day. So as always, celebrate with a beer. Today I've got a Fierce and Noble Homey Galaxy Pale Ale. Oh, that is nice. Right, you stay safe, get some stuff done.